Trying to build a gaming PC right now, or even trying to upgrade your existing older rig, really kinda sucks. Graphics cards in particular are almost impossible to get your hands on, and certainly not for any reasonable amount of money. Luckily, NVIDIA just launched their RTX 3050, which promises to be the affordable card that you might actually be able to buy. But is it better to pick up an older or a used card, something like one of these, instead of a brand new hot off the shelf 3050? Well, let's test them all and find out. First, the 3050 itself. This is the OC Dual model from Asus, meaning while it has the same sort of base specs as any other RTX 3050, the same 2560 CUDA cores, 128-bit memory bus, 8GB of GDDR6 VRAM and PCIe Gen 4 connectivity, it offers slightly higher boost clocks, allowing for slightly more performance than, say, a stock card, or technically it isn't a stock one, but that's the idea. It runs at 1852 MHz in its OC mode, or 1822 in its gaming mode, compared to the 1780 MHz of the sort of stock specs. It's actually a pretty, relatively small card. It's relatively low 130 watt, at least stock. Asus don't seem to list the TDP for this one, but the 130 watt stock power rating means that you don't need all that large of a cooler to keep the thing cool, and you only need a single, in this case 8-pin PCIe power connector. Technically speaking, you could get away with a 6-pin, as the PCIe slot offers 75 watts and a 6-pin would offer another 75 for a total of 150, rather than the 8-pin which offers an extra 150, but, well, it's extra headroom, doesn't hurt to be there, so no problem. Now, despite its small size, it still manages to include a rather nice metal backplate, and, strangely, a 304 stainless steel rear I/O plate. I'm genuinely confused on this. I mean, they printed the metal type right on the thing, and it's listed as one of the key selling points on their site. Quote, a stainless steel bracket is harder and more resistant to corrosion. But I didn't know that rear I/O shields corroding was a significant problem that needed solving, and seems like a weird decision on a card that is specifically designed to cut costs. Of course, this is far from being as cost-cutting as AMD with their most recent 6500 XT, which I've done a full video on, at least discussing why they've cut the costs and sort of how they've done that. Feel free to check that out after this one with the cards above, but that doesn't mean that this is an instant win. The market is so crazy that even multiple year-old cards are selling for above their launch price, which is absolutely ridiculous, but it also invites the opportunity to buy older used cards instead of the inflated prices of the new ones. Cards like the RTX 2060 6GB, the GTX 1660 Ti, or even AMD's RX 5600 XT are all options that can be found for effectively the same price as the RTX 3050 right now. But how do they compare in their performance? Starting with Shadow of the Tomb Raider at 1080p on high settings, I've listed both the average game FPS, the GPU average, and the GPU 95% here, so you can see how they stack up. And you can see that on all counts, the 3050 is the slowest. Not by all that much, it's just 5 FPS to the 1660 Ti, but the 2060 is almost 20% ahead, and right also in the sort of performance range that you're likely to notice and benefit from that extra performance. I thought I'd also throw up the 1440p results too. Not much changes here, just that the gaps get a little closer in actual FPS, even though the relative percentage performance remains pretty much identical, with the 2060 offering about 17% more performance than our 3050. The 5600 XT not being all that far behind, about 12.5%, and the 1660 Ti offering more like 5% more than our 3050. In Watch Dogs Legion, the gap is a little tighter, with the 3050 still being the slowest, but very closely followed by the 1660 Ti, then a gap to the 5600 XT, then 2060 at 1080p on medium settings. The spread is tighter at just 12 FPS, or about 13.5% fatter over the 3050's performance, although if you look at the gap between the 3050 and 1660 Ti, and then the gap to the 5600 XT and 2060, it's pretty much in the same proportions. The same goes for the 1440p results, where the 3050 and 1660 Ti actually tie for average FPS, with only a single FPS lead going to the 1660 Ti in the 1% lows, then a decent jump to over 70 FPS for both the 5600 XT and the 2060. You probably won't believe this, but in Cyberpunk, it performs identically to that too, with the 3050 at the bottom of the pack, followed by the 1660 Ti that's incredibly close within a single FPS difference, then a reasonable gap to the 5600 XT, and then the 2060. In fact, same again for 1440p, this time with the 3050 actually taking a half an FPS lead over the 1660 Ti, but let's face it, it's functionally identical across the board. Moving on to CSGO, this is a much more CPU bound or CPU bottlenecked game, and despite me using a 12600K, well, it does kind of shake the results up a little, with the 1660 Ti actually taking a reasonable, if completely imperceptible and honestly within margin of error for this game, a bit of a lead. The 3050 is still at the back of the pack, but as a percentage, the total spread is only about 6%, so I really wouldn't be worried. At 1440p, things are somewhat reversed. I mean, the 5600 XT is actually in the lead here, with then the 1660 Ti put to the back of the pack, all bar the 3050 as usual, and the 2060 kind of in the middle. As for Microsoft Flight, that kind of brings us back to the status quo here, the usual order, as actually this time a slightly larger lead over the 3050 with the 1660 Ti, although it is only a 3 FPS difference, so really not all that substantial. The other two are a full 10 FPS up on the lower two, sort of respectively, and again, that's right in the noticeable window of performance loss or improvements. At 1440p, the two lower end cards sort of iron themselves out to be functionally identical, with the two higher end cards still running a touch and potentially noticeably faster. And finally, in Fortnite, you get the 3050 that's finally not on the bottom. Now, it's only winning by 2 FPS over the 1660 Ti at 1080p at high settings, but hey, it's not on the bottom, right? Again, the 2060 and even the 5600 XT offer a potentially significant performance uplift here over the 3050, with the 2060 actually breaking out of the 144 FPS sort of limit that many gaming monitors would prefer you to be outside of, so that's a great option. As for 1440p, it's still the same lineup and actually very similar numbers thanks to Fortnite changing the render scale to, I think, 75% when you run at 1440p high settings rather than, say, epic settings. So the 3050 almost exclusively comes last across the board. That's somewhat disappointing. Normally a new generation of GPUs will match or outperform the sort of last gen tier up card. For example, the 3050 should at least match the 2060, but it doesn't quite. However, especially with the new, the current market situation as it is right now, the £239 MSRP well makes up for that. But as we all know, that's the MSRP, and not what you can actually go and buy one for. I'm sure even in a normal market that probably wouldn't be the case, as there are only add-in board partner or AIB models available like this one, which thanks to the additions of, things like stainless steel I/O shields, tend to be a little bit higher than the MSRP anyway. But how much would you be parting for one of these? Well, a little too much. Well, it seems like £400 is what you're probably going to be parting with from most retailers that at least have any stock available. Now, a quick check on eBay will find you some for more like 350, which is definitely better, but still pretty far from the 240 that we were promised. What about the used cards? Well, in general, I can't find a 5600 XT new, so you're gonna have to be looking on the used market, and it seems like that's about £400 as well at a common buy it now price. The 1660 Ti can be just about found new, but for an insane £400 price tag, so used is likely the better option, where 340 seems plausible. And finally, the 2060, well, that can be had new for 420, or if you're lucky you can find deals like these where the buy it now price for a used card is about 340 as well. So if you must buy new, the 2060 is, I think, by far the best deal. It's only £20 more for, on average, around 20% more performance, and I think it puts you in a better position to both use it for longer and provides somewhat viable 1440p performance if that's what you really need, or more likely better high refresh rate 1080p performance in at least the short to medium term. If you're happy to buy used or even third party, then at £340, the 2060 is still, I think, by far the best deal there. Really, anything up to about £400 for that card is still the best price to performance, or sort of performance per pound rating, with the only catch being the 6GB of VRAM you get on the 2060 compared to the 3050's 8GB. But especially if you're sticking to 1080p, I would generally expect that to not be a significant bottleneck, at least by comparison, for a fair while yet. As in, what I'm saying is the weaker GPU of the 3050 will continue to be its bottleneck more than the VRAM capacity on the 2060. With that said, those are both my thoughts on the benchmark results. I would love to know your thoughts in the comments down below. If you are actively looking for a graphics card, is this the sort of price range you're looking at? I would assume it is, as that's where the vast majority of gamers kind of sit, but feel free to let me know in the comments down below. Also, if you did manage to snag a good deal, or you're on the hunt, or you got some crazy things you found, feel free to leave those too. Also, I'll leave some links to at least the cards that I can find. At very least, there'll be a few Amazon affiliate links down there for you to check out. Those will take you to your local Amazon store where you can hopefully see pricing whenever you watch this, but unfortunately, especially in this market, there's no guarantees. But either way, if you want to see more videos like this one, then feel free to hit that subscribe button and turn on the bell notification icon. Feel free to check out more videos on the end cards when they pop up. And if you want to support the channel and keep me making these videos, and hopefully, have better access to more options as well, then feel free to support directly through the YouTube join button and become a YouTube member, or Patreon to become a patron and get cool rewards for doing so either way. Pick up a hoodie or t-shirt like this one, or a few other designs I've made myself, or just the other affiliate links. If you're buying from, say, Overclocks UK, feel free to use that link, and plenty of other options as well. Otherwise, thanks for watching, hope you enjoyed it, we'll see you on the next video.